It is so cold here, and all I want is a nice, soothing, satisfying soup. So if you feel the same, check out this vegan celeriac soup recipe. Hey, I'm Nadia at Embracing Harvest. For more recipes and tips on growing your own food, hit that subscribe button below. I'm always on the hunt for satisfying vegan soups, and this one certainly fits the bill. It features a less common vegetable called celeriac, or celeriac, or celery root. There's also different terms for this vegetable. And if you're wondering, yes, it is the root of the celery plant. It's actually a variety that's grown specifically for this root. So not so much for the stalks that you're used to buying in the grocery store, it's actually grown for the root. So don't be intimidated by it. I will show you how easy it is to prepare. The ingredients that we will need for this soup are celeriac root, or it might also be called a celery root, cauliflower or potatoes, whichever one you have. Cauliflower obviously make it less of a starchy soup. Onion, garlic, green apple, vegetable broth, coconut milk, apple cider vinegar, olive oil, and salt and pepper. The first thing we'll do is chop our onions and garlic. Just a rough chop is fine. We're going to be blending it up. And then get out a big soup pot, throw in the onions and the garlic. You can either do one of two things. I like to add water. I know a lot of people saute their vegetables in oil. I typically, unless I'm trying to brown them, which I'm not trying to do here, I will saute it in water. So I'm really just trying to soften them as I'm getting the rest of the vegetables ready. But if you'd rather have that sort of fried kind of taste to it, you can definitely add oil. And just saute them or just soften them for a few minutes. And while those are cooking, I'm going to chop the rest of my vegetables. We'll start with the celery root. First we want to cut off all this brown and be left with just the white center. You don't have to peel off as much as I do. I like to peel it inside of this ring here. I find that typically when I see a ring like that in a root vegetable that's kind of gnarly like this, I find that inside that ring is when you get the most tender part of the vegetable. And just give it a rough chop. Try to chop all of the vegetables that we're cutting around the same size so that they cook evenly. And you're not waiting for some vegetables to cook while the other ones are already soft. Then I'll chop up my potatoes. If you want a lower starch option, you can use cauliflower, same amount. And I've made it both ways. I do enjoy both, but I happen to have potatoes today, so I'm cooking with potatoes. You can of course use whatever proportion of celeriac and potato you like. I like to have at least double the amount of celeriac as I do potatoes or cauliflower, but you can bring it up if you like a little bit more potato, or you can bring it down if you really want to highlight that celeriac taste. Then I will chop my apple. I'm only going to use half of the apple for this recipe. I don't want it to be too sweet, but I do want to add a little touch of sweetness. And the green apple adds a wonderful sort of acidic but sweet taste to this soup. The garlic and onions should be soft by now. If they start to brown too much or if the water dissolves, you can always just top it up with a little bit more water. But now I'm going to add all the vegetables, some broth. I don't always have vegetable broth around. I do like to make my own if I can, but I don't always have it. I also don't always have cartons of vegetable broth. I have made this with a bouillon cube and water, and it turns out just fine as well. So use whatever you have in a pinch. You know, it's better to have homemade soup with a bouillon cube than store-bought soup, in my opinion. So certainly if that's all you got, use a bouillon cube. Just cover the pot up and let it come up to a boil, bring it down to a simmer, and just let it simmer for 15 or 20 minutes or until the vegetables are soft. And the way to check that is to put a fork or a knife or something in one of the larger vegetables in the pot and just see if it really easily slides in. If you don't want it to have any resistance. If there is some resistance, then just let it cook a few minutes longer. Now it's time to blend. We can either use a hand blender or a stand blender. I have a Vitamix, so I can definitely get this pretty smooth, but I'm choosing to use a hand blender today because I kind of like the consistency that it gives. It's almost like applesauce, which is pretty cool. But of course, choose whatever option you'd like. And now that it's blended up, I'm going to add the coconut milk, the apple cider vinegar, and I'm going to start with just a half a teaspoon of salt. If your broth has salt in it, or if you're using a bouillon cube, then definitely taste it before you add any additional salt. It's easy to keep adding more salt. It is very difficult to take the salt away. So definitely keep tasting it, stir it up, add some salt, stir it up, taste it, and then keep doing that. And just start with, quarter teaspoon at the most at a time after you get past that initial half teaspoon. And we have our soup. I like to serve it with a drizzle of olive oil on top, especially because I didn't add any oil to my initial onions and garlic when I was starting the recipe. And If I'm serving this for myself, I'll probably just eat it as is, but if I'm serving this for guests or if I want to make it look extra special, I will chop up some green apple and put it on top. Maybe some sprouts are really nice on top as well. Croutons you could add, and then serve it with a nice salad. Radicchio would be really nice as a side salad, or any sort of bitter green, because this is a sweeter soup, so having that sort of bitter side salad is a wonderful complement, and that makes a perfect lunch or light dinner. There you have a wonderful, satisfying soup made with this crazy looking vegetable. And if you're looking for more recipes or tips on growing your own food, eating seasonally, definitely hit that subscribe button below, and I will see you in the next one.